errors prove Australia's undoing.
Oh, he's lost it! A chance for England! Robinson!
But in attack, the Roos tries were well crafted.
Tooby from the right works it back to the captain on the left. Fittler picks up Menzies, and it's easy. Menzies gets the try.
And their defence was first class.
Such a great tackle by Timmy Brasher.
Down but not out. The Kangaroos will be out to show they are still favourites for the World Cup.
Dimmock gets the pass away. Menzies, he'll get his second.
Tonight, Australia versus South Africa on Nine's Wide World of Sports.
It was disappointment for the Australians over the weekend, losing the opening game of this year's Centenary World Cup. But tonight, as we welcome you to Gateshead in the north of England, the Aussies will be looking for a confidence booster and a big scoreline against one of the new teams on the international stage of rugby league, the South African Rhinos. We've had 4 games decided so far in the tournament. We'll have a look at those results now. That game, as mentioned at Wembley, England a great start to their campaign, 20-16 over Australia. Fiji much too good for South Africa, 52-6. In Group 2, the best game of the tournament, New Zealand just sneaking home over Tonga in a very physical affair. While in Group 3, Wales too good for France. Welsh winger Anthony Sullivan scoring the first hat-trick of this year's tournament. But tonight, the Australians looking to come up with something a little bit better than we saw on the weekend. And Paul Morton, a real opportunity after that result for some guys to maybe sneak into the starting lineup for the important games down the track. Let's have a look at the side, and who do you think could do that?
Yeah, Pete, very interesting side picked by Australia tonight, and some of these young blokes do have a great chance to make this maybe the semi-final team in a couple of weeks. Players such as Brett Dallas in the wing putting pressure on John Hopewati. You've got Paul McGregor maybe in the centres. The Johns boys, of course, have got to come into contention as well, especially Matthew Johns. I know he's playing 5'8" tonight, but there is a deal of pressure on Wayne Bartram to retain his spot in the hooking role. He may switch there later tonight. Nick Kossoff, Jason Smith, Billy Moore, Paul Harrigan, of course, is playing. Aaron Raper, now he's another chance for the hooking role come semi-final time. And Adam Muir lines up in the front row. A strong-looking bench as well, Pete. This game tonight is all about Australia getting their defence right first and getting some teamwork together to score plenty of points. Look, they'll probably win by 100, but that's the scoreline won't matter to Bob Fulton. They just want teamwork.
We mentioned Chief Harrigan was playing, something of a surprise, picking up quite a serious injury on the weekend. He's one player who thinks he can get into the starting lineup. When I caught up with him earlier, I asked why the decision to play tonight when he could have had some time on the sidelines.
Oh, mate, I think it's it's probably it's up there with the most important thing, I think, in rugby league, a chance to captain in a test match, and I'm certainly not going to let a cheekbone or whatever, an injury get in the way, so I'm very keen to play tonight.
But has it been said to you that you risk further damage by playing tonight?
Oh, of course, there's always a risk there, but we took all those things into account and analysed and still come up with a decision that I'd like to play today. I think it's a very special thing, and I just want to run out.
A great honour for Paul Harrigan leading the Australians for the first time tonight. We will see an easy victory for the Aussies tonight, but important that they do come up with a good performance. The second game of the World Cup for the Australians. They're taking on South Africa. We now go to Ray Warren.
And thank you, Peter. Big moment for Paul Harrigan, leading the Australians out for the first time, and ironically at a place called Gateshead, about 2 kilometres from Newcastle on Tyne. Of course, the sister city of our own Newcastle. And Paul Harrigan takes the green and gold side out there for this second match in Group 1 against the Rhinos of South Africa. Humbled, you might say, 52 points to 6 by Fiji on the weekend. There's the Australian team. O'Davis at fullback. The boys have been through this side. Dallas, Hopewati, Danny Moore and Paul McGregor, a couple of very tall centres. Matthew and Andrew Johns at half and 5/8. Then Nick Kossoff, Billy Moore, Smith, Muir, Raper and Harrigan. 4 of these lads on their debut to international football. South African side, Van Wyk, Coombe, Johnson, Ballot, Boschov, Alkema, Van de Venter, Fourie, Williams, Human, Watts, Coulter and Boyson in the number 10 is their captain. As the subs, Brasher, Dimmick, Bartram and Carroll are on our bench. Russell Smith from England, from Castleford, in charge of this match. So it's South Africa from right to left, and their fullback, Pierre Van Wyk, gets this second match for Australia underway. And it's Adam Muir with first touch of the football. He had a great debut to international football in the first test match that he played against New Zealand. And now Billy Moore, another of the players on debut in the famous colours of Australia. The Johns brothers will relish the opportunity of playing together in this important match, one that is conceded as being lopsided, but nevertheless. Now, away from Andrew Johns, it's on to his brother in the headband from a gash he suffered at Wembley on Saturday, and Aaron Raper, another of the young players enjoying their first taste of the green and gold jumper. The first mistake made by the Rhinos. Australia gets it back for 6. 12 metres out, centre of the ground, Kosef on, Matthew Johns away, and the centre three-quarter from Illawarra, Paul McGregor strolls in for try number 1. One of many, I would expect.
Yes, it didn't take long in coming. Beautiful quick play of the ball after Aaron Raper cleaned up the mistake from Pierre Van Wyk. Kick went high, fullback couldn't take it, and then a nice cut-out pass at the end from Matthew Johns was the key play. Raper cleaned up nicely, got the quick play of the ball. South African slow to reform. Nick Kosef into first receiver, and a great pass to McGregor. Well, I guess hasn't had a lot of football for quite a while now, something like 6 weeks since he played his last game.
Yeah, nice work by the Aussies. Good start for them. That's a good ball, that one. But good work by Andrew Johns, who followed up his own kick to put pressure on Van Wyk and Australia. And it didn't take him very long, 75 seconds.
So the conversion attempt for Andrew Johns. He's got a record in sight here in his first international. I think Rod Wishart set against the Frenchman at the end of the '94 Kangaroo Tour. So we'll keep you posted on Andrew's endeavours for his personal conquest tonight as he converts the McGregor try after 1 1/4 minutes, and 6 points to 0. Australia over South Africa. From Gateshead International Stadium on a clear night, a beautiful night. Jason Smith, watch him. He gets a smack over the face there as the winger came away to make the gap, and Jason was a little bit uncomfortable for a few moments. We come back direct, and it is Robbie O'Davis stretching skywards to bring it down and then take it back. 11 metres away from his own line, try scorer Paul McGregor.
The Australians obviously looking to nurse Paul Harrigan through the opening minutes of this game. He's going through as a decoy on most occasions. There's some sloppy work there, finally cleaned up by Andrew Johns. He gets a good ball away. Jason Smith threw the dummy to take it outside the 20. And Harrigan yet to have a touch, just finding his way.
So Billy Moore working 2 passes off the ruck. Plays it about 10 metres short of the halfway line. And Muir it was that unloaded, but referee Russell Smith has ruled that it went forward. So the first scrum of the match is to pack down. It's about to say a clear night, and the weather here has been quite incredible. This ball is deflected, it would seem, forward off the left hand. Pack weights there, nothing in it, average pack weight, as the South Africans get their first touch of the ball, their first touch that they've been able to master. And this is Human who plays it now. Van de Venter, a dummy half, and then through and away to the big centre, Boshoff. 22 metres out, and Van de Venter finds himself again a dummy half. The pass over the shoulder of his captain, Boyson, and the other centre, Ballot, or Ballo, as some people would have him called. The 11 with a handoff, and it's across now for Coombe. Some very big forwards in the South African lineup, and they obviously felt the strain of the pace of the game as they go to the air off the boot of Van Wyk. And Robbie Davis was absolutely superb in that take. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. That is a magnificent take in anybody's language.
Yeah, great stuff by Robbie Davis. And that'll be the Rhinos' only chance of scoring tries, I would think, is the bomb. But if O'Davis can keep that form up, there'll be no tries.
It was his second great take of the game. The restart after the first try was scored saw him come up with the Australian rules mark over the head. And Adam Muir, his Newcastle teammate, doing some good work in the middle of the ruck. Matthew Johns also slipping a ball to McGregor, keeping it alive.
Muir, you might recall his great games in the semi-final series, in the latter part of the season, I should say, and he can always pop a ball off. This is Van Vick. I would have thought he would have run away from the sideline. In fact, he tried to beat Brett Dallas down the corridor on the blind side. He nearly paid the penalty. The winger Mark Johnson, and now Coulter, for the first time in the game, gets to dummy half, his allocated job, just inside their own 20-metre line. This is the big prop, Watts, Gideon Watts. He's bandaged up, his left thigh and his head. Apparently they suffered a lot of injuries against the Fijians in their 52-6 loss. They were only partially in the game for 40 minutes, and then the Fijians ran away from them. And I was about to make the point, some of the bigger fellows, they felt the pace of top-class football very early on in the 80 minutes.
So that, of course,
McGregor.
is the test. Seeing how long they can remain enthusiastic. Bill Harrigan.
Billy Moore up the centre looking for, I feel that was Danny Moore, and he's put it down. And coming away with it is South Africa again. About 7 or 8 metres on their own side of halfway. It's a feeling of the defence, jolting defence, and Australia penalised for being inside the 10. Jason Smith, the main offender. Pictures from BBC. As Russell Smith adjusts his hearing apparatus and telling the South Africans to get behind their kicker as Van Vick finds the line with quite a good kick. They're coached by former Great Britain Test hooker Tony Fisher. He's only had 3 months to put them together. As the big number 12 lumbers up, that's Human. He was a late inclusion, and now their captain Boyson. He could be coming to Dewsbury, Boyson. The coach, Tony Fisher, feels that he has got some kind of future. And now they go up the centre with Gideon Watts, and he's been pummeled into the ground. 3 Australians, including Aaron Raper. And now they go across and they put it down. And it will be a scrum that Australia will have the loose head and feed on.
So even though South Africa are a fledgling country, they're playing basic football, but the Australian defence still has to be good to hold them out. Some enthusiastic players here running very hard. And Australia still on their toes.
There's a promising build-up from South Africa. Very well read by Aaron Raper. Gideon Watts coming up, making a pass off the dummy half at speed. A much smaller man, Aaron Raper, took him comfortably. Nick Kosef looking for some space on the blind side. Good defence on the 20-metre mark.
Well, many people have been predicting that Nick Kosef would wear the green and gold one day. I don't know that even his most ardent supporters would have thought that he'd be in a jumper this early on, but he is. He deserves it. Danny Moore striding out now, down to the 20, gets it on for John Hopewate, and Hopewate goes 5 metres in from that corner post to score the second try.
And also over the advertising billboards, smile on the face from John Hopewate. Beautiful move, a couple of cutout passes, Andrew Johns throwing the first one, and all of a sudden it was Danny Moore working out wide. Beautiful pass from Matthew Johns, and Moore did the simple things nicely, drew the fullback, and a simple pass to his wingman.
Australia will catch South Africa out wide all night tonight. Willing defence, but technically not very sound, and really can't. They haven't got the pace either to foot it with the Australians. And that's good news for Hopewate, who had a disappointing match the other day. He's a better player than that.
South Africans having a problem working out to whom the ball is going, and it is drawing the wingmen and the outside centres in. Second man plays and face passes have brought them undone on the 2 tries, and the wingers and outside centres coming in and leaving that channel down the sideline. So Andrew Johns from the sideline, and there's the conversion. Beautiful kick, 5 metres in from touch. Converts Hopoate's try. Smiles all round at Gateshead. Will take this break and come back. Back to Gateshead International. Australia leading 12 points to nothing over South Africa with Billy Moore. And now across it goes for Andrew Johns. 2 shots at goal, both successful in pursuit of that record of Rod Wishart's. In fact, not only that record, but the most number of points scored in an international. That could go by the board as well. In fact, that was over 70 scored in France, as McGregor gets a smell of his second try, loses the ball, and coming up with it is the man at the back of the South African scrum, Fourie.
It was a great tackle there from Willem Boshoff, the number 4 for South Africa. It looked as though McGregor was going to run straight through. A tremendous tackle forced the mistake, as well as coming up, stopping the bust being made.
A little hesitation there has taken the impact out of the attack, and Russell Smith again has penalised the Australians for being inside the 10. He'll probably do his best, Russell Smith, to keep South Africa in it as long as he can, but the job might become a little bit too much for him as well. In fact, I think it already has.
Interesting, the betting on this match tonight, Ray, that over here in England, if you wanted to back Australia, you had to give 84 points start. And back in Australia, you have to give 66. I know one punter who's at $50,000 on Australia at 50 to 1 on tonight.
Yeah, and you paid cash too.
This is Boyson. And now about 10 metres out from the Australian line. A test for their defence, working for the South Africans to make the mistake. Played by Gerald Williams. Cool to let a runner go. Van Deventer has come around. It looked like a shepherd. And Russell Smith agrees, so he'll give a penalty to Australia.
It was a promising move, that one, from South Africa. In the end, a sheepherder pulled them up. There it is there. No player really taken out, I suppose, but Russell Smith read it that way.
Most of these Australians out there tonight would be very happy that they finally got onto the football field. Coach Bob Fulton has been putting plenty of work into the players since arriving in England, still training twice a day. Nice to get out there and finally face some opposition as Jason Smith takes the ball over halfway. Good strong tackle there. Mark Carroll warms up on the sideline.
Andrew Johns warms up on the halfway line. He got away, got a pass on for Dallas. He went in and away. He lost his footing. Round with some markings that are probably just as confusing to you as they are to the commentators, as Robbie O'Davis does a bit of light stepping and takes Australia's cause just inside the 20-metre line. For Billy Moore to play it, they go back to the left. They've got plenty of numbers out there, and Matthew John's got a pass on to Jason Smith, but it has hit the touch judge on the feet. So it's going to be a South African scrum, loose head and feed. Chris Bombolas again with us on the sidelines. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Ray. Nice and chilly down here on the sideline. The news is that Paul Harrigan will be coming off. Brave effort by the Chief even to take the field tonight with that hairline fracture of the cheekbone. Mark Carroll getting ready to come on, and we're just chasing to find out who'll be the skipper. Of course, it was Paul Harrigan's first turn as Australian skipper.
All right. So Mark Carroll will be very, very proud because his dad is in England for the World Cup, his father Dave, and Mark will be very keen to get the opportunity to play in front of his father in the Australian jumper again.
A high tackle there pulled up against Adam Muir. So the news from the sideline that Andrew Johns will take over as the skipper of the side. Ray, you mentioned South Africa picking up quite a few injuries in their match against Fiji. Of course, Australia in the same boat to some extent after Saturday's game. It will be interesting. There is some talk that Gary Larson may joining the squad. I guess that will be weighed up by the team management as to especially how the front row department is situated.
I think that'd be a great move too. Gary Larson, of course, couldn't come because of personal reasons, but he would certainly tighten up the Australian ruck if he came. His great defence and hitting the ball up.
Gerald Williams now, just outside the 20-metre line, and plenty of numbers in the South African back line, very deep, but running one out at the moment. Fourie is about 18 metres out from the line as they come across, and De Venter showed good hands and then got the ball off for the number 4, which is Boshoff. They're in the centre of the park. They got the choice. They come to the left. Williams back inside. Boyson is with it. Boyson, as I said earlier, he's a likely type. And apparently the English club Dewsbury feels the same. Van der Venter chips and chases, but O'Davis was there waiting. And the tackle suspect from the 5'8", Alkema. And now McGregor decides to hurt them even further to the halfway and inside for more. Outside it was meant for Hopewate. Van de Beek, he comes up with the ball for South Africa. And Van Beek is smashed into the ground by the 8, which is Adam Muir. So a quick fluctuation of fortunes here. Ballot, he's put down 15 metres out from the green and gold line. Gerald Williams is with it now. He gets a pass back for the 12, which is Human. 3 metres out, right in the face of the uprights. The Australians defending desperately. Coulter, a long ball away from Alkema. It's there for Johnson. Johnson! 2 metres off from the line and a metre in from touch. Now they fire it away again, looking for one of these big forwards to crack the Australian defence line. Watts it is. 5th tackle. Coulter is the 9. Gets it across, and the 5'8" Alkema puts it over the dead ball line on the full.
Well, that's not the kind of play that Bob Fulton would be pleased with. The break made, a silly pass thrown at the end. And South Africa cleaned up nicely. Van Vick getting involved, making a good bust, and then Brett Dallas missed a tackle. And his opponent in the corner, and Johnson almost getting around to score. Mark Carroll deciding not to throw that pass, and Bob Fulton will be looking for a controlled effort out there. Keep the ball alive. No silly passes.
This is Muir. And now through from Matthew Johns for his brother. Out at 5'8", McGregor into the space. Then for Dallas, he holds it back and then it gets deflected. And it's been dived on by a South African and a penalty for offside against them. Quick tap taken by Andrew Johns through to Aaron Raper. Then Matthew. There's the space out wide. But the passing is going very much astray.
Well, this is some pretty ordinary football here by Australia tonight. They could have scored 6 tries already in the first 20 minutes, but passes going to ground, passes that don't have to be thrown, and the passes that have been thrown are going out over the touchline.
Australians must get some more depth into their attack as well. Countless times we've seen the pass thrown behind the outside support. And generally they are the players to blame, the players on the outside who aren't getting deep enough to run onto the football and make it that little bit easier for the ball players inside.
I'll tell you, has looked sharp, Pete, and that's Paul McGregor. And I think one player who could force his way into the semi-final side, which will be the big one in a couple of weeks, is McGregor, the way he's playing tonight.
He's had a great start. So do Adam Muir as South Africa come up with a mistake.
Jason Smith tries to capitalise on it. Was scooped up there by Matthew Johns, who seems to pop up in the right place at the right time. Now Big Carroll storming his way towards the line. The run ends a couple of metres out. And Aaron Raper quick to dummy half. Through now from the half back. It's with him now, in fact, Andrew Johns. And he tries to fend away. He's very close to the line, looks at it, thinks about it. It was still quite legal to do so, but there's the try anyway for Kosef. Too quick, too classy. And Mick Kosef, one of the players on debut, gets his first international try.
And a great moment for him too, isn't it? They might only be playing South Africa, but it is the World Cup. He is playing for Australia and gets his first try in those colours. Well done to Nick Kosef. Very simple move in the end, but I think that's what maybe the Aussies have got to go back to, just simple plays. And Kosef saw the space there from dummy half. No defence.
Yeah, a couple of South African players there, notably Human, not getting into the line. Kosef looked up, he wanted to throw the ball wide through the dummy. And just the gap there very inviting.
So Andrew Johns now from about 16 metres out, and a similar distance off centre, and looking for his third successful kick of the night. Kosev scoring the try. Andrew Johns gives it plenty of height, and a conversion there adding to the Australian total. 18 points to nil then. 18-0 Australia over South Africa from Gateshead. Gateshead International Stadium, thank you for joining us. The coverage of the 1995 World Cup of Rugby League. Australia in their second match of the tournament, going down, of course, to England on Saturday at Wembley, 20 points to 16. South Africa went down to Fiji, the other team in the group of four, known as Group 1, and they lost 52 to 6. Just what this score line will climb to, probably the subject holding most interest, as the Johns brothers put it together, and then McGregor running into the gap, and then for Dallas. This is what they tried to do earlier, unsuccessfully, but not this time. That time they got it right. Andrew Johns scores the try, and he adds to this impressive tally that I'm sure is going to be his by the end of the night, and he will certainly be on top of the world come the end of this 80 minutes of football.
And once again, this came down to the skill of Paul McGregor. He's always had this ability to draw in players, and he's developed this nice one-handed offload. Look, he takes both the players out there. That's a great skill. And Dallas, he double pumped, but John stayed onside.
Yes, Mark Jackson, the South African winger, came in off his wing to allow Brett Dallas a free run. Some nice sleight of hand on the inside once again. McGregor attracting two defenders, and Brett Dallas, who must be hopeful of a start in the semi-final side as well. And Andrew Johns on the inside backing up.
That's something McGregor's done to plenty of Winfield Cup players as well. That's not too embarrassing for the South Africans.
We are going to see a big score line, but it is a start, and it's great to see South Africa here, and they are one country that really can make a mark in rugby league over the next 5 or 10 years.
So Andrew Johns with that kick from near enough to the touchline is unsuccessful. And no change to the scoreline, with Australia leading South Africa 22 points to nil. Andrew Johns in pursuit of most number of points scored in an international, and that stands to the credit of Michael O'Connor with 30, with 4 tries and 7 goals against Papua New Guinea in 1988, as we see Andrew Johns taking his total at this point in time to 10 for the game. 74-0 was the biggest score in an international. That was last year by Bob Fulton's Kangaroos in France at Béziers. 74-0 that was. And Rod Wishart in that same match kicked 11 goals to set a record for most goals kicked in an international. Sideline from Chris Bombolas.
Thanks, Ray. The news on Paul Harrigan is pretty good. He took a slight bump to that fractured cheekbone. No more damage, so the news is pretty promising on him. Just on the South Africans, I spoke to them before the start of the game, and they're using this as a learning curve. Of course, they had a pretty hard lesson against Fiji, but they're still trying to get it together.
Kosev now just outside the 20-metre line. Dallas is the dummy half on that right wing. Then Andrew Johns covers 20 metres with a long pass to his brother Matthew. Got his arms free and tried to flick it, but then hung on. Maybe the message has gone out to not try and score on every play. Let's consolidate as Kosev shows it, turns it in, and the big fellow McGregor in the centres gets his second try for the night.
He's put on a couple, Paul McGregor. He gets this one himself after some good work from the Australians, throwing the ball side to side. Tremendous work from Matthew Johns on the far side of the field not to throw the pass. More of that needed. It was a risky one, the little flick out the back to Adam Muir. He decided the better option was the quick play of the ball. And a long pass here from Andrew Johns. Tremendous work from Kosev. Looked like he'd been wrapped up by Boshoff, but still able to get his arms free.
How good is their passing game, the Johns boys? In the Rugby 4, there was a 35-metre pass thrown from Johns to Johns. And it's just magnificent stuff, beautiful to watch.
Great thing about them, Paul, is that they can do it both sides. Like most players have a favoured side, but they seem to be able to throw the football with great accuracy and length, whether they're throwing left or right.
So Andrew Johns now with the conversion attempt. Just beyond the 20-metre line, almost on the T-bar. The line is good, coming down gently and just inside that right upright. So he's kicking beautifully. He's playing with great confidence. And Australia extend their lead, 28 points to nothing over South Africa. Chris Bombolas was making the comment, and there's no doubt about it. It has to be a learning curve. You don't expect to come into these tournaments and take on the world champions with a great deal of success. As we watch that try for Paul McGregor, there was some thought that South Africa were elevated from the emerging nations side of the World Cup simply because they had to make up 10 teams in the top division. Eugene Powell is on for South Africa. So it might well be, if that thought is true, that they were the unlucky member of the emerging nations to be elevated. But then again, as I look at them, I wonder who you could bring up other than South Africa. Somebody had to do the job, and they unfortunately came up with it. It might not be unfortunate as they look back on it, though. This is Dallas.
No, this will be invaluable, the experience of playing against the international rugby league sides. I'll be all the better for it. One of those passes that Paul Borton was talking about from Andrew Johns.
Oh, beautiful stuff. Danny Moore. Well, the Johns brothers, they covered the field with two passes. It went from Dallas at dummy half for Andrew to find Matthew in the centre of the ground, and then Danny Moore on the opposite side of the ground with nothing more than 3 passes, 32-0.
But again, the quality of the pass is the fact they can throw the ball so far and still hit their outside support players on the chest. Just have a look at this from Andrew Johns, and look where it's landed, in front of Matthew, running onto the football on his chest. Be nice to play outside, and then the little step from Danny Moore to beat Van Vick and improve the position, and also improve Andrew Johns' total in this match so far.
From front on, this is what the South Africans were confronted with. If Paul McGregor isn't big and fast, this man is equally big and fast, Danny Moore. Great season for him. This is the conversion attempt, and from right in front, successful. So, Australia, pretty hard to keep up with the scoreboard, as a matter of fact, leading 34 points to 0, and a further 2 points to the tally of Andrew Johns. We'll keep a close eye on that.
Well, the last few times they've had the football, they scored directly just about from the kick-off within 6 tackles. See if they can do it this time. Plenty of flashy players out there, Adam Ewan, Nick Kossoff, but one player who's doing a lot of good, solid work up the middle is Billy Moore, having a good game as Kossoff breaks through. Now his turn for a try, is it?
Down that sideline, the Manly teammate gave him the call, a familiar sound, John Hopewade, and he scores yet another try. In fact, John could have easily scored 5 tries at this point in the game, had a couple of passes gone in front of him and not behind him.
Yeah, some beautiful work once again from the Australians. The Rhinos' defence has capitulated. Not even at 30-minute mark. This could be 150 this tonight.
Yeah, the simple fend on Alkuma there from Nick Kossoff. And having Kossoff in the side is like having an extra inside back. Beautiful passing game, but he can run the football as well. Good strength there to get rid of the opposing 5'8". Looks to see where the support players are. He actually called Hopewade inside. Saw him call his name.
You see the task. See the look on Aaron Raper's face? He was looming up for the try, and Hopper beat him to the punch.
So Andrew Johns, 5 from 6 plus a try, so 14. He comes from 12 metres in from touch with a beautiful kick. So Andrew Johns takes his personal tally to 16. And the Australian total racing ahead. We'll take a break and be back in just a moment. Welcome back. And Brett Dallas with a close call back on that corner that he's defending. 10 metres away from their line. Scoring at will. It's not something that you necessarily enjoy watching, but as I said earlier, such the luck of the draw.
That's Jimmy Dimmick on now for the Australians. Mark Carroll, a well-earned break, didn't start the game. Carroll came off the bench, but was very strong while out there. Andrew Johns to Matthew, straight through, nearly got the ankle tapped, looking for support now, and they're lining up. There he is, Aaron Raper, the hooker, gets one. You've called it right, Fatty. He wanted one, and he's had to run 50 or 60 metres to do so.
Well, he missed out a couple of minutes ago, but once again, straight from the kick-off, away they've gone. The Johns boys, they're on fire here tonight, but some nice work in the end by Billy Moore, who tailed up as well to give the last pass. They're just great players, these kids. That's a beautiful pass, cutting out 3 or 4 players. South Africans too slow, really, and some good support by Billy Moore and Aaron Raper. When he gets the ball, he goes whooshka.
Well, what a great moment for that family, the Raper family. There's been none greater than John Raper on the field and for the game off the field. And as a selector, it wouldn't have been easy for him to get involved in Aaron's name coming out on that night. Don Ferner would know exactly what was going through John Raper's mind as Andrew Johns converts yet another try. A try belonging to probably the most famous name in rugby league, Raper.
Yeah, he'd be a proud old dad, wouldn't he, Chook?
What about his mum?
And his mum, of course, Carol. Lovely lady. But Johnny's looking at this. I bet she's flashing back 30 years to himself going over the try line. It must be a great moment for them.
Tell you what, young Aaron's starting to develop a haircut very similar to his father's too at a very young age.
I don't think it's a bad look, actually, Ray.
No, I thought you'd like it.
A few attractions in it.
Coming into fashion, Pete, isn't it?
The Johns brothers. There was a tiny knock on there, I thought. I don't know that the touch judge gave the centre man any assistance at all as Dimmick tries to muscle his way out of the defence.
I have to say, Ray, the Red Wolf stood up there today on the golf course when only got the hole in one, 6 inches away, P. Vorton. Andrew Johns finds Adam Muir. He missed the putt.
And of course, you know, Raz, when you hit a good shot in our crew, that it's greeted with stony silence. Peter very quiet today.
Rob Andrew, the England fly half, who put the Australians in awful trouble in the World Cup in South Africa.
Well, he's the man that broke their back. That marvellous long-range field goal, basically ruining Australia's chances in the World Cup, taken out by South Africa.
That's a nice smother on the bloke in front too.
South Africa with this penalty now as Van Vick finds the line 20 metres out. It's been an age since they've had the football. Well, they've had it plenty of times to kick off with, but they haven't had an opportunity to attack the line for what seems it must be 20 minutes or so. 11 metres out now from the Australian line. South African forwards will no doubt again try and put the head up, the head down and the backside up and try and break this brick wall defence. Van de Venter, the number 7. And Coulter fires a pass away for Alkmaar. Got a pass off, he was hoping. They won't come any closer than that. Look at the quick play, the ball by Jason Smith. And Robbie O'Davis scampers away to be tackled by Williams, the second rower, and the Alkmaar over the top. Raper flicks a pass down. Andrew Johns is with it now, out to the 30-metre line. So that fleeting moment of pressure, if you can call it that. There's Matthew throwing himself a pass. He does it often. Centre kicks now. McGregor's looking for number 3. The bounce has beaten him. It's come down to Coulter, the hooker. And Coulter did well to be where he was, in fact.
Yeah, great work by Coulter. Not a bad idea, the centre kick. McGregor stayed on side, The bounce missed him though, and the hooker there. Good defence by him.
Another mistake by the South Africans in their own half. Scrum will be set 38 metres out from the Australian line.
Under 5 minutes of the first half to go now. With Australia leading 46 points to 0.
It's all one-way traffic, but it's it's good for these Australians to be able to show some skill and have a little bit more room to move. There's the great Bonzo there. He's looking quite bored.
A very deep backline set here by the Australians, but this could be one against the feed. Unfortunately knocked on by Fury, the lock forward. And the Australians another opportunity to attack here. Brett Dallas has left the wing from the blind side to go across and stand outside Matthew Johns at 5'8". So we might see a movement with a couple of decoys out wide. Danny Moore very, very deep. He's 40 metres away from the scrum.
8 tries, 7 goals. One of those tries belongs to Andrew Johns. The goals all belong to him. And talking of Novocastrians, here's the fleet-footed fullback. And Robbie O'Davis gets his share of the spoils, puts the brakes on as he comes to the advertising signboards. What are you smiling at?
Oh, those Novocastrians. You're kidding, Rams.
I can't do anything right according to your language.
Beautiful moves there. Good set play there. Dallas.
There's the half century too, fat man.
Beautiful stuff. 50 blot. Dallas came there, just a nice little decoy. Held a couple of players up, but this came down to pace, and O'Davis too much pace for the roly-poly bloke at the back, Van Wyck. Bose, I just said to Bose, you reckon you get out there and score one? He says yes, but I don't reckon he would. He's 55 now, and pace of 40 years ago is gone.
I tell you what, I was talking about John Raper being one of the greats. There probably was none greater than the Australian coach, Bob Fulton. He was one of those players that he just had that magic right across the park. 73 grand final was just one example of how Bob Fulton could take a match and win it for you on his own sim. There's the conversion for Andrew Johns. His 8th goal of the night, 8 from 9. There are 9 tries on the board, and it's 52 points to 0 at Gateshead International. A try scored with great purpose and executed by the Johns brothers. It was really the Newcastle connection.
And a valiant dive there from Willem Boshoff. He's centre for South Africa. He's been one player that's been quite impressive out there. He's got a pretty tough task, especially up against this man, Paul McGregor, who's been outstanding. Boshoff, one of the better defenders out there, seems to read play a little bit better than some of his teammates. There's still time in this first half for the Aussies to run in another 4-pointer. John Hopewati into opposing territory.
Well, let's talk about players that might be there with an opportunity of making the Australian side. I'm talking on the positives for the semi-finals. Paul, you've already listed Paul McGregor as one of them. Peter, you listed Brett Dallas. Are there any more positions in that Australian team that we saw on Saturday that might be under the microscope?
Well, there's no doubt about that, Ray. I think the hooking role might come under the microscope. Aaron Raper and even Matthew Johns, who came on into that position. South Africa knocked the ball down there. Take the intercept, and Boyson and Jimmy Dimmick having a disagreement. Fortunately, it hasn't escalated into anything. Referee Russell Smith looking to get the players apart, and he's given somebody no minutes in the sin bin.
No, that was his timeout signal. That's timeout. Stop the clock.
Thanks, Rav.
Well, Jim Dimmick is the man involved with the South African captain, Jaco Boyson. And it all happened there because Boyson knocked it down. Jim thought he had the football. He held on, and then it went from there.
Ooh, bouncing on the feet too, Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy was right up on the balls of the feet.
And I think you find the first offence was a forward pass against Australia.
He's got great vision, the fat man, hasn't he?
That's why this will be a South African feed. There's a Sheriff running off in the Reebok gear. Great sponsors of the Australian Rugby League.
So as we come to the sound of the hooter, a merciful sound really for not only South Africa, but from a commentary point of view, trying to keep up with it all is quite difficult. 52-0, the Winfield Kangaroos. I don't know where Fat Man got that from. 52-0, the Winfield people sponsoring this Australian Rugby League side. We take a break at Gateshead International. Some records are set to tumble here. They've cracked the half century. Will they make the 100? And how many records will fall en route? We'll break and come back in just a moment from England on the Channel 9 coverage of the World Cup. Welcome back to Gateshead. And don't forget, you can purchase some of these great grand final photographs from the Wide World of Sports collection by simply dialing 008 029 900. And next week we'll be showing you the latest photo from last month's grand final between the Bulldogs and Manly. Also, the official film of the first 100 years of rugby league is available in Australia. It's called Going for the Line, and it's 100 minutes of great moments and recollections from the game in England and overseas. And here is the number coming up for you to add this new video to your collection. It's 1-800-074-155.
And in the other game played tonight, a real surprise, 28-all between Tonga and Papua New Guinea, and Tonga led 20-0 at half-time.
And they've got to put a question mark, I suppose, on Tonga's fitness, that being the case. They had the match against New Zealand, won, and allowed 12 points in the last 7 minutes of that match. 20-0 tonight against the Kumals, and they played a 28-all draw, so you'd have to think that maybe it was a question of stamina for the Tongans. Kick-off time now, 52 points to 0 in favour of Australia, looking to rewrite international record books. And that is Coombe, the South African winger. I think it might be his first touch of the football. Good run that. Good struggling run by the hooker, Coulter. Ballot. Driving tackle over the top from Dimmock on Raper's low tackle. Oh, knees in the approach from the lock forward Fourie. That should have brought a penalty. At very least, it should have brought a penalty. Van Beek's kick brought back off the 10-metre line by Robbo Davis.
Definitely a dangerous action there from Tim Fourie, jumping into the tackle.
Well, you had a bit on something at Chepstow today that had an action like that, Pete.
Billy Moore playing it as it's offloaded for Adam Muir. Now for Andrew Johns. Paul Harrigan led the side out. And back on the bench now. Mark Carroll taking his place in the side. And Andrew Johns replacing him as captain as Aaron Raper's confidence builds. Jason Smith has got some pain on his face.
Yeah, he's hurt.
And he hasn't got the best of right knees at the best of time. Let's hope it's not that again. He's limping badly as this kick comes down off the hands of Brett Dallas and Van Deventer. Jason Smith is the centre of the Australian bench. The eyes on the Australian bench centred very much on Jason Smith. Not too many more creative players in the Australian side than Jason.
Paul McGregor rushing up there. Referee ruling coming from an offside position. You wouldn't think that Coach Bob Fulton would leave Jason Smith out there too long. The knee continues to be a problem. There's the number 4 Australian getting up way too quickly.
This is Boyson, front row forward and captain of South Africa, one of their better players against Fiji, although I suppose it's hard to give anybody too big a rap when you get beaten by half a century of points. 10 metres out now from the Australian line, though, as they work it up on the blind. This is Gideon Watts. Welsh rugby career behind him. Boyson. Centre of the park, and the Australians probably for the 5th time in the match tested. They've gone very close a couple of times, the South Africans. That's the turnover.
And that's the inexperience shown. There was good 5 tackles leading up to that. They didn't throw many passes, but they had bodies in motion, a couple of dummies. And the last tackle really had nothing play, which takes all the pressure off now as Billy Moore takes it almost to the 20-metre mark. Bomber, how cold is it down there on the sideline?
Well, it's getting fairly brisk, Sturlo, I can tell you that at half-time. Obviously, Australian coach Bob Fulton was very pleased. He said, keep an eye on your discipline and don't get carried away in the second 40 minutes. Tony Fisher, the Rhinos coach, he said he wants his team to have a go, slow down the Aussies in the play the balls and stop them spreading it out wide where they're creating a lot of damage. Jason Smith did take a knock on that knee that he's got heavily strapped, but he wants to run it out. I can understand why. There's plenty of tries available.
Here's Matthew Johns looking for a try. Jason Smith, there's nothing wrong with the knee there, it would seem. Now they're 12 metres out. And across now from Andrew for Hopewade to go in and score. What is that? His 3rd try of the night. And believe me, it could have been 6.
Yeah, good move there by the Australians. Jason Smith tried to run it out in one fell swoop as he sprinted 30 metres looking for his first try. And on the end of it, the South African defence couldn't adjust or readjust. And there's too much space out wide.
One of the problems the South Africans have, although there's plenty of problems, but one of the main problems is slowing the play the ball down for the Australian side. Jason Smith was tackled there by Guy Coombe, but was allowed to play the ball still very quickly. Aaron Raper out of dummy half, got hit by Boyson. Andrew Johns, a simple pass to Hopewade. Again, Nick Kosef involved in the lead-up work. But while ever the Australians are making breaks and playing the football quickly, points will flow.
8 from 9 for Andrew Johns. 18 points in the match so far. He's 12 in arrears of the international record held by Mike O'Connor. 20 metres out, and he's brought it around so accurately. He's really kicking with great confidence, Andrew Johns. He's on debut tonight, but you'd never know it. This man, John Hopewade, incidentally, one of the records that I hadn't mentioned that could fall by the wayside tonight is most tries in a test match, which these days this is considered as one. And John is looking to join players like Rebo, O'Connor and Shearer and Steve Ella for 4 tries in a test match. He's got 3. One Rebo did recently. 12 metres up from the Australian line. And across they come. Again through the Johns brothers. McGregor, he's looking for his 3rd tonight. Pulled down 8 metres from the halfway line. They've got to slow them down and to play the ball to stop them getting it across from one side of the park to the other as quickly as all of this. And let me tell you, and this is not casting aspersions on Russell Smith, they'll get plenty of help from him if they do want to hold down, but they just haven't thought about it. A knock on by Australia will bring a scrum and some relief. Some running repairs there for Gideon Watts. He stands, I don't know, around about 6'6", something like that. 17 stone of him. As they win the scrum, and Van Deventer tackle just inside the 30-metre line. This ground probably, I would think, something like 5 or 6 metres shorter than the grounds that we're supposed to play on. I think they've probably made some exceptions and allowed this ground to be passed. Well, that was good thinking. They were on their way. They had started the celebrations, but then that whistle brought a final note to their aspirations.
Yeah, knock forward there, and Alkema put a couple of razzle-dazzle steps on, but all to no avail because it was called back. But we looked good there for a minute.
Matthew Johns stepping away from his opposite number, but running into The halfback Van de Venter going across in cover. Kosef on for Billy Moore. A couple of players out there tonight. You've got to be just so thrilled for them. Players like Billy Moore in particular. Now, a beautifully directed pass sees Danny Moore down the ground, in, away, stepping, looking now, finding the 15, Dimmick. Dimmick goes for the line, puts it down for his own try. Brett Dallas was jogging alongside of him, but Jim Dimmick takes the try after Danny Moore had laid the foundation.
Tremendous support play from Jim Dimmick, because Danny Moore had actually run away from most of his support players, which were on the left-hand side of the field. Beautiful hands from Danny Moore to take this pass. It was a bullet pass, but it took some ability to pluck that one out of the air, up high, in front. The big left foot step through a couple of defenders. And then the second wave arrived. Jimmy Dimmick deciding not to use Dallas. The big fend on Coombe, and the adamant put down over the line.
Good stuff by Danny Moore. High stepping, beautiful action. And he ran away from Hopewadi on the left wing. But on the other side, he found Dimmick. And Jimmy's played a fair game the other day in the big one against England. He's done nothing wrong tonight. He's in good form.
Andrew Johns. 22 points on the board for him. 8 points away from Mike O'Connor's nice number of points in an international, and this one is offline. So he's missed his second kick of the night. And what are we at now? 62 points to nothing. We'll break and come back in a moment. Kickoff to welcome you back to what is taking on record proportions, and a big run. I think that was Jim Dimmick, in fact, that brought it back from the kickoff. It was the try scorer, and now they come across through to Matthew Johns. He shows it, and then eventually is put away by Alkema. About 7 metres into South Africa's territory as Kosef works with Billy Moore. And Moore is driven down and back by Coulter for Raper to give it away now.
And those last two tackles showing what South Africa need to do. Get numbers in their tackle. Hopewadi attracting 3 defenders this time. Oh, there's a punch there. Looked like thrown by Boyson, the captain. And the penalty goes to Australia. Of course, those Boyson there penalised, but what we thought the infringement was going to be, the little short right thrown. Here it comes. Not much in it. He's a bopper, 6'2", 16 stone. He's a big fellow.
Billy Moore now. Put down just 11 metres away from the line. 5-2 penalties conceded, that count is. 5 by Australia, 2 by South Africa. And of the 5 given by Australia, I think the bulk of them has been for being inside the 10. Here's a chance. More than that. I thought he was going to say over the line for Aaron Raper for his second, but they've gone to the right and away with Matthew. A couple of decoys inside, and then Robbo Davis goes in to score his second try. It was beautifully put together. Everybody did their job. Everybody read the script, and Robbie O'Davis simply had to catch and run.
Beautiful movers, once again set up by the Johns boys, and the teamwork shown there with the Newcastle mob, and Robbie O'Davis on the end of the Johns boys passes. Look at the decoys, the dummies, there's all sorts of things there. Drew the right people on Davis running into fresh air.
Yeah, once you come up in a staggered line against that kind of attack, you've always got problems. The lock forward there, and Tim Fury was actually cover defending when his front line didn't have enough defenders in it. There he is there diving at Robbie O'Davis' feet. The Johns boys have got tremendous vision. They can see where the gap's going to appear by the way the defenders place themselves. Put one defender in front of the inside man, all of a sudden the hole is there. The well-weighted pass will always find it.
12 tries then. And Andrew Johns, well, he's missed another one. That's the third one he's missed tonight. He's been successful with 9 now from 12. 66 points to nothing. 2/3 of the way there. And this is how it came. Watch the two centres do their job. They angle back in and away. McGregor and Moore, see them? And they take the heat off the ball carrier, who eventually is Robbie O'Davis.
The best way to defend against size moving the football in that situation is to slide across. Keep sliding so that you're not committing yourself. Trying to force the opposition towards the sideline and eventually to run out of room.
Interesting to drive into this township of Gateshead, which, as I said earlier, is a couple of kilometres from Newcastle. The signpost, you could be forgiven for thinking we're heading for Marathon Stadium for Friday night football. One signpost that I read had Hexham, Wickham, and of course Gateshead, and another one called Morpeth. I think there's a suburb in Newcastle called Morpeth. And it suddenly struck me that we were driving into Newcastle's sister city. But Paul Harrigan, Robbie O'Davis, the Johns brothers, Adam Muir, they would have felt a bit like I did. We're on a night driving up to Newcastle along the way from Sydney. And they're playing very much like they're at home too, against unfortunately fragile opposition. But we can't do anything about that. And this is Forey bringing it down well for South Africa, but there's been a penalty awarded to South Africa.
Yes, the Australian chasers offside there. Matthew Johns deciding to kick the football. A very good take there by the lock forward. As Van Vick will find touch with a great kick. That's picked up 40 metres, just eluding the clutches of Robbie O'Davis. So a chance now in the crowd he would love to see. The South African Rhinos run in a try here. Gideon Watts, again, barging towards the line.
Now their captain, Boyson, attracting a bit of attention from the Australians. They probably haven't dealt it out to anybody, but Boyson has attracted their attention like a magnet. Now another penalty goes to South Africa as Williams is on the ground injured. Probably, I was about to say, move the point of the play the ball. And he's calling out an Australian.
Yeah, it was a pretty high shot there again from Adam Muir. The second time he's been penalised for a high tackle in the match. Gerald Williams still down, receiving attention in front of the posts. This should allow South Africa to organise their attack. They'll have 6 tackles from only 5 metres out. It would appear the way they're set up, they can only go to the left side unless they use their front rowers barging straight at the posts.
They opt to go with the back rower, Forey. They're a metre out from the line as they go now for their captain and front rower, Boyson. Still 2 metres out from the line. Can they score against this so far impregnable Australian defence? The number 9, Coulter, had a look at it, got it away, and then I think they're over this time. It'll be Gideon Watt. Gideon Watt has gone over to score. Looking like somebody out of emergency hospital or something like that, ER. But he's gone in to score. He might have given the old uprights a headbutt as he went through. 66-4.
Good perseverance here by the South African side. They got the penalty and some good offloading in traffic. Here's one coming up. It's like a rah-rah maul. And over they go. Spin and turn and good stuff.
Rebound off the upright protector, the guard. But you're quite right, it was very much like a rugby union play. They convert off the boot of Pierre Van Vick. So there's the try scorer. As we go to a break, they're on the board at 66-6. Into play as we welcome you back now to England. We're broadcasting tonight from Gateshead, which is northeastern England, not too far down from the Scottish border, but over towards the eastern coastline. There's the South African try scorer. He's a mean-looking critter, isn't he?
He's the player they do look for, South Africa, in that 20-metre area. The Australian end of the field. A great deal of precision in his play, but he's very willing. Spun out to score their first try. They attack up the blind side through Fury. That's the last tackle now. Looking for Van Vick to kick the ball down the other end of the field. He does kick the ball very nicely.
Robbie O'Davis has scored 2 tries in this rout of South Africa. There's more to come. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to rewrite some records in the book. Sideline with Chris Bombolas.
Well, there's no more to come for Paul Harrigan. We have it confirmed that the chief will be going home.
Replaced Paul Harrigan. There was some thought that Adam Rickson might have been that player.
Well, that's shocking news, isn't it, for Paul Harrigan? He really hasn't enjoyed the best of times in England. Great kick there from Andrew Johns. Finds touch only 3 metres out from the try line. The chief looking to establish himself in the test side. A head clash with Brad Fittler on the weekend, and the hairline fracture has ended his tour in disappointing fashion.
Close enough to 50 metres off the boot of Andrew Johns, and like a Scud missile. Bingo, right on target. Fury now. Just inside his own 20-metre line as another penalty has been given by Australia. 66-6. Scoreboard. Never, ever have I seen a scoreboard like that, and I guess most of you fit into the same category. Boyson. 5 metres now on the Australian side of halfway. The scoring rate has been slowed somewhat. Talking of what, this is Gideon, the try scorer.
Mark Carroll back out there for Australia. Jim Dimmick on the sidelines as Powell takes the ball centre field, 35 metres out. Malcolm are looking to create something out wide. Finds his centre, Ballot. Strong defence out there again from Paul McGregor.
Fury.
What's the ball, look?
Now. So Smith is packing a scrum down. Ball coming out. I'm just wondering who he's going to give the feed to here. In fact, he'll obviously give the feed to the Australians. Otherwise, it would have been a penalty to South Africa. I'm not so sure that he actually saw what did happen, Russell Smith, by the same token. There was a huge delay as the South Africans tried to put a big push on the scrum. And Australia have jerried to it now as they now win the scrum, and Robbie O'Davis comes into the back line, 66-6.
Well, some scrappy play there. Nick Kosef looking to do a little bit too much and getting the ball to Hopewati. It was nice to catch up with some of the Australians before the match. We haven't had a chance to see them since being over, and get chat with the young Johns boys, asked them what sort of time they were having over here. Having an absolute ball, and of course they've been blessed with the weather. These Winfield Kangaroos been very mild in England this time of year. 23, 24 degrees earlier this week. I guess it will start going downhill from here on in.
Now, South Africa using a replacement. Nico Serfontaine has gone into the game, taking the place of the other replacement, Eugene Powell. And this is Williams. He's tried very hard, the big fellow. He's been a couple of metres away 3 or 4 times now from Coulter at dummy half. Through from Deventer, a long pass trying to emulate the deeds of Andrew Johns. A rebound comes back for Jason Smith. And the Australians back with the football, and a penalty, a high tackle on Jason Smith. big man, this fellow, Sir Fontaine. He's big around the chest, or maybe he's got a fair bit of padding in there, expecting a hot reception. As Mark Carroll gets it to within about 30 metres of the South African line. Moore. He's worked tirelessly, Billy Moore. He hasn't necessarily got his name on the try-scoring list. Now Matthew Johns goes out for Paul McGregor. He'll try and slip it if he can, but Van Vick brings him down with Watts. And here's the Australians brewing up for yet another try. This will be their 13th. And it is Danny Moore, who's about 5 metres out from the line. Jason Smith, a dummy half. Andrew John steps off the right foot twice, comes back, and came straight back to where the markers were waiting. They didn't move. Andrew came back to them. And there's Australia plummeting over for, as I said, their 13th try, and Jason Smith is the recipient of it.
Yes, the defence had fallen asleep there, and Smith could have stood up and made himself a cup of tea before he scored that one. He just dived over, could have tripped over even. But you talked about Billy Moore. He's had a very strong game tonight, just continually hitting that ball up the middle, making the hard yards, while the others have done this sort of thing.
Well, some astonished looks there from the defence. Very simple task that, no one getting down. No one really worried about the dummy half, and they've done quite well to defend. Up to that stage, Andrew Johns looked like he might step his way through. Wasn't to be. He's just missed the last couple of kicks, Andrew. So he'd be keen to put this one over and get back on track for that record.
So that's where he is, 20 metres out, 10 in. The main camera side, and again he's hooked it, and he hasn't been able to land a goal now in his last 4 attempts. 70 points to 6, Australia over South Africa, the World Cup of 1995.
Would you like to...
So, as we welcome you back, Van Vick restarts for South Africa. We've got about probably 15 minutes of the match remaining, and Mark Carroll has been ordered to the blood bin for the umpteenth time in this season. And Mark has gone back to the bench, which sees another of the Australians back out there, just running the eyes through to see who it is that's out there at the moment with Mark off. Dimmick. And now Adam Muir pushing it out the back for Kosef to give to McGregor. And McGregor on the end of a good strong tackle from Fourie. Now Andrew Johns, and then, oh, look at the hands of Matthew Johns, and then put down by Danny Moore, who even seemed like he might have been bedazzled by the ability of Matthew Johns to take it in. Mark Carroll gets some running repairs as the scrum prepares to pack for a South African feed. Handling errors. Statistics out of this match.
A rare win
of little import.
Against the feed there, the Australians coming up with the scrum win. Good quick heel. Adam Muir takes it the blind side, looks to offload. Takes the wise choice. Play the ball. And Raper picks up Matthew Johns.
Now with Andrew, a decoy back inside, and McGregor is well taken out there by Boyson. Johns, a dummy half, offloads for Billy Moore, and very close to the sideline, but he's only about 8 metres out from the line itself. Hapawate on for Andrew Johns. Matthew turns it in. 15 is Jim Dimmick. And able to get a pass away, even though under extreme pressure. Then Andrew on for Raper. Through it goes from Kosef. Out with Muir. Holding it in that familiar one-handed fashion. I don't think I've seen a player do it as consummately as Adam Muir, and now a little knock on a dummy half.
I have to say it hasn't been a great second half for the Australians, leading 52 blot at half-time. Only scoring 18 points to 6 so far in the second half. Their ball handling's let them down.
Timmy Brasher about to come on. They'll have some problems with him.
Well, he's pulling out the scrum penalties now.
Just looking back to Saturday's game, Paul, I thought at times Brad Fittler getting into first receiver a little bit too much, and that's why I was interested tonight to see how the Johns boys would fare. I'm not quite sure whether Brad is a natural first receiver. Seemed to make it fairly difficult for Jeff Tuvey and Jim Dimmick at times. I'm just wondering whether Boltford might even look at moving him into the pack at lock forward and do something a little bit different out wide.
Well, I suppose it depends on the form of the other players. But, Brad tried very hard. The way the Johns boys have gone tonight, maybe one of them at 5'8" and Fittler out back into the centres, who knows? It'll be Bob Fulton's decision.
Davis able to get a clean shot at that. The ball has been knocked on, though, by South Africa. And I think he'll rule that it's an Australian feed because Robbie O'Davis didn't get a hand on it the way I read it. 70 points to 6. 70th minute. Paul McGregor eagerly looking for his third try. 74-0, the biggest score in an international, an all-time record set last year, and that is about to fall by the wayside, one would think, because they go in again with Andrew Johns scoring. Now that brings him much closer to Michael O'Connor's record, and we're getting dangerously close to the biggest winning margin now at 74-6.
Maybe the teammates realise that Andrew Johns is getting close to the individual record as well. Danny Moore, a sweetheart, offload there. Great ball. Have a look at this one from Jim Dimmick. Just opened up the hole with the weight of the pass. Matthew Johns, the inside pass to Danny Moore, steps off the left foot. No doubt that Moore could have scored himself. He was up against Gideon Watts, but Andrew Johns took the pass.
I noticed the South African coach, Tony Fisher, right in amongst his players over there, laying down the law. He's giving it to them.
Andrew Johns raises the flags this time. His 10th goal and his second try. So 28 points puts him 2 in arrears of equaling Michael O'Connor's record, set back in 1988 when he played against Papua New Guinea.
And just 1 goal behind Rod Wishart's effort of 11 goals. There's Danny Moore. You can see here, really that close to line, he'd have fallen across in the tackle. And Timmy Brasher on the field now. Aaron Raper, who's had a fine game at hooker for Australia tonight. Brasher, and that will mean a reshuffle in their lineup. Kosef, tremendous pick-up from Andrew Johns, who throws the dummy.
Tim Brasher's at dummy half. I don't know that he's been sent out there with that express purpose. Matthew Johns was there a couple of times. And now a scrum to be fed by South Africa, almost on the halfway line.
Matthew Johns in the hooking role once again. And Brasher will drop back to fullback as Burey picks the ball up from the scrum base. Takes a 45 out from the Australian line.
This is the big fellow we're talking about earlier, Sir Fontaine. And now, Furey, who's done a couple of good things in this match. Seven minutes out from time. 76-6. Puts them 4 points off eclipsing the record. Batted forward by South Africa. And that's Robbo Davis bringing it back 18 metres out from his own line.
Mark Johnson flying high there on the wing for South Africa as Brett Dallas Takes 10 metres out of dummy half. And again, the back line set straight away for Australia. Jason Smith the cut out to Matthew Johns. Running out of room with Danny Moore. Hopewadi heading inside for the reverse pass. Was misread by his centre. Another mistake. We'll see Wayne Bartram warming up down on the sideline now. I wonder how pleased she'll be. Only minutes to go and leading by 70 coming into the game.
Ballot. Van de Venter. Sir Fontaine. Fourie. Coulter. De Venter. Stinging tackle up the top. Didn't feel it. Jim Dimmick. Two decoys and then away from Alcombe to Boshoff. Taken out by Brett Dallas, and that's the turnover. So the Australians running out of time in quest of rewriting the record books. O'Davis is over the sideline. Johnson makes the tackle, puts him into touch.
Well, it's elementary mistakes, isn't it, that are costing Australia more points. They seem to have slackened off a bit.
Bartram has gone on for Jason Smith. South Africa take it to the centre of the ground.
Fourie nearly knocking on there as Jason Smith goes towards the bench. In fact, the referee has seen a knock on.
Yeah, he got the call from the touchy there. I thought he might have regained it before he hit the ground, but is the test hooker from the other day going on. Wayne Bartram taking down in the second row.
On the sideline, Chris Bombolis. Yes, Chris.
A funny sideline to Wayne Bartram. He couldn't believe it when there was about 8 minutes to go and the signal came from Bobby Fulton to warm up and get on the field. He wasn't all that keen. He was going to try and warm up for about 6 or 7 minutes.
The Australians now, South Africa putting a big push on, and now he's given them the penalty, Australia. So for pushing the scrum off the mark prior to the entry of the ball. And Australia now putting it on, looking to crack this record. This is Billy Moore. South Africa managing to get back about maybe 3 metres, certainly none more. And here they are, throwing it around with reckless abandon. Dallas is with it. Now McGregor, back and across from Kosef, I think it was, and now it's over for O'Davis. Throws it into the centre. Danny Moore rakes it in, and Danny Moore goes in to score. 80 points to 6. That equals it. The conversion will break it, and the conversion will be from right in front.
And Andrew Johns played a major role in this try. Beautiful quick hands, catching and passing in the one motion, allowed a little bit of space on the outside. Just have a look at this pass coming up there. Magnificent to Robbie O'Davis, who threw the ball back inside. Good take over the head from Danny Moore, whose handling's been very good this evening. Under the posts.
He's had a wonderful game, hasn't he, Andrew Johns? This will equal the 30 points record.
So Andrew Johns from right in front breaks that record of 74 points to 0, set only last year as being the biggest winning margin in an international, and he equals now, that is his 11th goal, that equals the most number of goals kicked in an international, and also takes him along to equal the record of Michael O'Connor. So Andrew Johns has just equalled the Wishart record of most goals in an international and Michael O'Connor's most number of points in an international as he converted that try scored by Danny Moore. And Australia has rewritten their own record of most points scored Well, the biggest margin in an international, really, 74-0 against France. And on the board, we've got 82 points to 6 now.
And 2 minutes to go in this game. Boati, the barging run there. Now Billy Moore takes it 20 metres out. Andrew Johns again looking for his troops to the left. Paul McGregor lining up, used as the decoy. There's the gap. Great ball to Brasher, who'll score.
Brasher was always going to give them some problems. Out there fresh in the dying stages.
Yes, great try to Australia once again, and here we go as the seconds tick down. And this is a chance for Andrew Johns to break that record, which has stood for the last 7 or 8 years. And I think he knows that too.
Adam Muir running into the hole. McGregor went through as the decoy. And Jimmy Brasher, just about his first touch of the football. He'd have liked to have improved the position, but a good chase from the South African winger, Johnson, from the far side. Stopped him from doing so. Jimmy Brasher, now one of the more experienced players at a young age for these Winfield Kangaroos. And a common sight at any level. Running in tries for the Tigers fullback.
And here's a kick. Will change a couple of records. He gets it. He'll wipe the names of Richard and O'Connor from the book. He strikes it, but he hooks it wide. So he's missed a lot of goals in this second half. He should have had the record on his own by a big space, Andrew Johns. 86 to 6, and only about 60 seconds of the match remaining. I'm almost sure 16 tries in an international would have to be the most as well. Tim Brasher in full flight, but he really goes back a gear. Just outside the 20-metre line, Australia to play Fiji to complete their appointments in Group 1. And there's the siren. The ball ending with Nick Kosef, one of 4 Australians that made their debut in this match tonight. 86 to 6. I don't know what that does for South African Rugby League. Hopefully they'll have learned something. Hopefully they will benefit. 16 tries and 11 goals. 86 to 6. With records falling very quickly in the last couple of minutes. Andrew Johns equaling 2 records. Most number of tries in an international, I'm almost sure of. And that all-time record, 74 to 0, as most points scored in an international. That has been clipped, or the biggest winning margin, whichever way you want to look at it. Well, that takes us to a break, and then we're back with Peter and Paul. They'll bring you their summation of what's happened here at Gateshead and preview what's to come at the 1995 World Cup on the other side of this break.